The sound of the bolt sliding into place was the sound of Corvina's fate being stolen. She pressed her palms against the heavy oak door, splinters biting into skin already raw from 8 years of invisible wounds. Above her head, music drifted through the floorboards, violins and laughter. The moonlight ceremony had begun without her. The ceremony where the Alpha King would find his destined mate. The ceremony Corvina had been meant to attend. The ceremony her stepmother had made certain she would miss. Corvina slid down the door until she sat in the dust of the cellar floor, her threadbare dress pooling around her like water. 20 years old, and she had learned to make herself small, learned to take up no space, learned that wanting things, hoping for things only led to disappointment, carved so deep it left scars invisible to everyone but her. But the mate bond, that strange pulling sensation in her chest that had started 3 days ago, that ache that whispered of destiny and belonging, that couldn't be made small, that refused to be invisible. It was pulling at her now, insistent, growing stronger with each passing moment, like a golden thread wrapped around her heart tugging towards something. Someone. Above her head, the mate she was supposed to meet tonight was up there, and she was locked down here in the dark. 8 years ago, things had been different. Corvina could still remember the girl she'd been at 12 years old. Still remember standing in the front parlor of this very house, her father's hand warm and steady on her shoulder as he introduced his new wife. Corvina had been small for her age then, all long limbs and uncertain smiles still raw from losing her mother to sickness 2 years before. Helena had smiled at her that day, a practiced smile, beautiful and empty. Corvina had been too young, too desperate for a mother's love to recognize the calculation behind it. "You'll have a sister now," her father had said, his voice full of hope that this would heal the hole in their broken family. He'd pulled forward a younger girl, 10 years old with golden hair that caught the afternoon light and the kind of confidence that came from always being wanted. Liana. "I expect you girls to be kind to each other," their father had said. For 2 years, Corvina had tried. She'd braided Liana's hair before pack gatherings. She'd helped her with her schoolwork, even though Liana rarely needed help with anything. She'd defended her from bullies, though Liana's sharp tongue usually did that work before Corvina could step in. And when their father died in a border skirmish, when Corvina was 14 and Liana was 12, leaving them both in Helena's care, Corvina had believed they were in this together. She had been so wrong. "You're making Liana look bad," Helena had told her on Corvina's 15th birthday, a day 3 months after her father's funeral. Corvina had shifted for the first time that night in front of the entire pack, her wolf emerging, sleek and midnight black under the full moon. She'd felt powerful, worthy, like maybe her father would have been proud. Helena had pulled her aside after fingers digging into Corvina's arm hard enough to bruise. "Your father may have had beta blood in his line, but you need to remember your place now. This family's future depends on Liana making a good match. Your job is to support her, not outshine her." Corvina had tried to do exactly that. She'd made herself smaller, quieter, less visible. She'd stopped shifting in public. She'd worn plain dresses while Liana wore silk and velvet. She'd sat in the back at gatherings while Liana held court in the center of every room. She'd taken on the housework that servants should have done while Liana practiced her etiquette and her charm. But somehow it was never enough. The chores multiplied, the criticism sharpened. The space Corvina was allowed to occupy in her own home shrank and shrank until she felt like a ghost haunting the halls of her childhood. By the time she turned 18, Corvina had learned to move through the house like smoke. Invisible. Unheard. Taking up no space at all. She'd learned which floorboards creaked, which rooms to avoid when Helena was in a mood, how to make herself disappear entirely while still completing every task demanded of her. She'd learned that wanting things was dangerous, that hoping for things only made the disappointment cut deeper. But she'd kept her father's diary, hidden beneath a loose floorboard in what used to be her bedroom before Helena had moved her to the attic. The leather-bound journal contained her father's neat handwriting, his thoughts, his memories, his wisdom about pack life and wolf bonds, and the sacred connection between destined mates. Corvina read it by candlelight on nights when the loneliness felt like it might swallow her whole. She'd memorized entire passages, knew them by heart, drew comfort from her father's words when nothing else in her life offered solace. "The mate bond is chosen by the moon goddess herself," he'd written. "It cannot be forced or faked. When you meet your destined mate, you will feel it. A pulling in your chest, a recognition in your soul, like finding the other half of yourself you never knew was missing. And when that bond completes nothing and no one can break it, it is sacred, eternal, the greatest gift the goddess can bestow." 3 days ago, Corvina had felt it. That pulling, that ache, that sense of something reaching for her from somewhere she couldn't name. She'd been hanging laundry in the back garden when it hit. A sensation like someone had hooked a golden thread around her heart and tugged. Not painful, but insistent, impossible to ignore. She dropped the shirt she was holding, one hand flying to her chest, breath catching. The mate bond. It had to be, but who there were alpha males in Silver Pine Pack, unmarked and unmated. No one she could think of who might, and then the news had come. A messenger from the capital, formal and excited. The Alpha King was making a tour of the territories. He would be stopping in Silver Pine Pack in 3 days' time. There would be a moonlight ceremony. The Alpha King, after decades of searching, believed his destined mate resided somewhere in the Silver Pine territory. Helena's eyes had gleamed when she heard, sharp and calculating. She'd looked at Liana, 18 and beautiful and accomplished, and Corvina had watched the plan form in real time. Liana will need a new dress, Helena had announced. The blue silk, no the silver. Something that catches the moonlight. Corvina, you'll help her prepare. Make sure she's perfect. Corvina had felt it then, the pulling sensation in her chest intensifying, growing stronger. Like the thread was drawing tighter, pulling her towards something, towards someone who was coming closer. She tried to tell herself it meant nothing, that she was imagining it, that the bond couldn't possibly be calling to her. Corvina Ashford, the invisible stepdaughter, the girl who'd learned to take up no space, the ghost in her own home. But she'd felt it when she slept, felt it when she woke, felt it growing stronger with each passing hour as the moonlight ceremony approached. And this morning, Helena had found her standing at the attic window, one hand pressed to her chest, staring in the direction of the capital with an expression Helena must have recognized. Hope. You're not going, Helena had said, flatly. Corvina had turned surprised Helena was even speaking to her. Usually Helena delivered orders through Liana or simply expected Corvina to intuit what was needed. What? To the ceremony, you're not going. Helena had moved closer, her eyes cold. I know what you're feeling. That pull, that ridiculous hope. But you need to understand something, Corvina. Whatever you think is happening, it doesn't matter. Liana is my daughter. Liana is beautiful, accomplished everything an alpha could want. She will meet the Alpha King tonight. She will be chosen, and you will stay out of the way. But if the bond, Helena had hissed, is irrelevant, do you really think I'll let you ruin this opportunity? Do you have any idea what kind of future awaits the Alpha King's mate power? Wealth, status, everything I've worked for. Everything Liana deserves. And you think I'll let some accident of fate give it to you instead? Corvina's chest had tightened. It's not an accident. The mate bond is sacred. The moon goddess, Helena had interrupted, can be worked around. If you're not at the ceremony, if you're nowhere near the Alpha King, when the bond tries to complete it, won't matter what you feel. Liana will be there. Liana will be beautiful and charming and everything he could want, and you will be forgotten. Again. The words had landed like blows, each one precise, each one designed to hurt. Please, Corvina had whispered, hating how her voice broke. Please don't do this. The bond. I can feel it. My mate is coming tonight. If I'm not there, if you're not there, Helena had said, stepping so close Corvina could smell her perfume, expensive and cloying. Liana will take your place, and you'll stay exactly where you belong, in the shadows, invisible, where you've always been. She'd smiled then, cold as winter frost. You should be used to it by now. Now 6 hours later, Corvina sat in the cellar and listened to her fate being stolen above her head. Helena had been clever about it, had waited until the afternoon when preparations for the ceremony were in full chaos, had asked Corvina to fetch something from the cellar. Your father's old jewelry box. I think there's a necklace Liana could wear. It's on the shelf in the back behind the winter stores. Corvina had gone, had descended the narrow stairs into the cool darkness, had moved past the shelves of preserved foods and stored supplies, looking for the jewelry box she wasn't sure even existed. The door had closed above her. The bolt had slid home with a sound like a death knell. Corvina had run back up the stairs, had pounded on the door, had screamed until her throat went raw. But the cellar was at the back of the house, away from the main rooms where the ceremony would be held. And the door was solid oak, reinforced with iron bands from when this space had been used for secure storage decades ago. Her father had built this cellar himself, had made it strong enough to withstand anything, including apparently his daughter's desperate escape attempts. That had been 3 hours ago, 3 hours of listening to the preparations above. The music tuning, the guests arriving, the ceremony beginning. 3 hours of feeling the mate bond grow stronger and more insistent with each passing minute. Like a living thing in her chest reaching, searching, confused by her absence. 3 hours of knowing that somewhere up there above her head, her destined mate was searching for her. And finding her sister instead. Corvina pressed her face against her knees and tried to breathe through the pain. Not just the physical pain of the mate bond straining, pulling, aching for connection it couldn't complete, but the deeper pain, the older pain, the pain of being invisible, unwanted, forgotten, the pain of being locked in darkness while the world moved on without her. Again, she'd spent the first hour crying, the second hour screaming until her voice gave out and her hands were bloody from pounding on the door. This third hour, she'd sat in numb silence, listening to the sounds of a celebration she should have been part of. The ceremony had started half an hour ago. She could hear the ceremonial drums, the elder's voice carrying through the floorboards, though she couldn't make out the words. The murmur of the crowd as guests took their places. And she could feel him, her mate, up there, close, so close. The bond was pulling so hard now it felt like it might tear her apart from the inside. Like every cell in her body was straining toward him, toward connection, toward completion, toward the sacred bond the moon goddess had chosen for her. But she was locked down here in the dark, and he was up there finding someone else. This is it, Corvina thought, resting her head against the door. This is how I lose everything. Another surge of pain hit her chest, stronger this time, radiating through her ribs like liquid fire. The mate bond was protesting, confused, reaching desperately for connection. She could almost feel him searching for her, could almost sense his confusion when the bond pointed one direction but another woman stood before him. Through the floorboards, Helena's voice rang out, artificially sweet, practiced. Your Majesty, may I present my daughter Liana, your destined mate. Corvina's heart stopped. Your Majesty, the Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the territories, the ruler whose authority was absolute, whose mate would become Luna Queen of the entire realm, and Helena was presenting Liana as that mate. A pause, long enough that Corvina held her breath, long enough that hope, stupid and desperate and impossible to kill, flickered in her chest. Then a voice, male, deep, resonating with command. Even through wood and stone, Corvina could feel the power in it, could feel her wolf respond with instinctive recognition. Stand. There was weight in that single word, authority that made every wolf in the room straighten, even those not being addressed. Let me see you. Another pause. Corvina pressed her ear to the floor, straining to hear over her own thundering heartbeat. Then flat and certain and final. You're not her. Corvina's breath caught. The hope in her chest flared brighter, dangerous, painful. He knew. The Alpha King knew Liana wasn't his mate. Where is she? Where is my mate? The words sent a shockwave through Corvina's entire body. He could feel her, even locked down here in the cellar, even separated by wood and stone. And Helena's machinations, the mate bond was strong enough that he knew she existed, knew she was near, knew Liana was wrong. I don't understand, Your Majesty. Liana's voice trembled. Corvina knew that tone, the one Liana used when she was performing, when she wanted sympathy or lenience or someone to believe she was innocent. I'm Helena's daughter of the Silver Pine Pack. I don't care whose daughter you claim to be. The Alpha King's voice dropped. The temperature in the room seemed to drop with it. You are not the woman the moon goddess chose for me. I can sense my mate nearby, but she is not you. A pause, then more sharply. Where is she? There is no one else, Your Majesty. Helena's voice now, smooth as silk. Corvina could picture her face, the expression of concerned confusion she'd perfected over years of social climbing. Liana is my only daughter of mating age. Perhaps the bond is simply, do not presume to tell me what I feel. The rage in those words made the floorboards vibrate. Corvina felt it through the bond too, a dark, violent fury that should have terrified her. But instead, her wolf surged to the surface, responding to her mate's anger with approval, with recognition, with a deep primal satisfaction. Yes, this was what an alpha should be. This was strength. This was power. This was protection. This was hers. My mate is close. The Alpha King's voice had gone quieter, more dangerous. I can sense her heartbeat, her fear, her confusion. Another pause, heavy with threat. And if you've hidden her from me, if you've interfered with the sacred bond the moon goddess herself forged, you will learn why lesser alphas fear to challenge my rule. Corvina's heart was racing now. He could sense her, even through all the barriers separating them. Through stone and wood and Helena's lies, he could feel her presence, feel her fear, feel the bond pulling him toward her. All to him, or call him, her wolf urged, clawing at her consciousness. Let him know where we are. But Corvina's throat was too raw from hours of screaming, too tight with fear and desperate hope, and 8 years of learning not to ask for things, not to want things, not to believe good things could happen to her. Then she remembered her father's words, written in that diary she'd read so many times she knew them by heart. The mate bond is sacred, he'd written, stronger than any magic, stronger than any barrier. If you're ever in danger and your mate is near, you can push your need through the bond itself. Your call will reach them. It will always reach them. Nothing can block a true mate's cry for help. Corvina closed her eyes, reached for the golden thread in her chest. It was there, thrumming with energy, pulsing with the rhythm of a heartbeat that wasn't her own. She grabbed hold of it with her consciousness, with her wolf, with everything she had left after 8 years of being invisible. And she pulled, pushed every ounce of her desperation and fear and hope through that connection. I'm here. I'm below you. Locked away in the cellar. Please, please find me. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Above her, something roared. Not a human sound, a wolf's fury voiced through a man's throat. The kind of sound that made every wolf in hearing distance submit instinctively. The kind of sound that preceded violence. The music cut off abruptly. People screamed, furniture crashed with sounds that shook dust from the ceiling beams. Where the Alpha King's voice had gone guttural. Barely human, resonating with power that made the air itself seem to tremble. Where is she? Your Majesty, please. Helena's composure was cracking. Corvina could hear it. You're not making sense. There's no one. The words cut off with a choking sound. This is the last time I asked nicely. Each word was bitten off, controlled with effort that made them more terrifying than shouting would have been. Where is my mate? Silence. Then quietly, reluctantly, defeat in every syllable. The cellar. But she's not fit to. The words ended in a crash so loud it shook the entire house. Plaster dust rained down from the cellar ceiling. Corvina scrambled backward, heart hammering, as footsteps thundered overhead, moving toward the back of the house, toward the cellar entrance, toward her. The door at the top of the cellar stairs exploded inward. There was no other word for him. The heavy oak door, reinforced with iron bands, secured with a bolt meant to withstand pack raids, simply shattered. Wood splintered with a sound like thunder. The iron bolt screws and all tore from the frame as if it were made of paper. And silhouetted against the lamplight from above stood the largest man Corvina had ever seen. He was massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders that nearly filled the doorway. Dark hair fell to his collar in waves that looked like they'd been run through with frustrated hands. But his eyes, God, his eyes, they burned with gold fire, lit from within by his wolf, glowing in the dim light of the cellar entrance. They locked onto Corvina with an intensity that stole her breath, and the mate bond snapped into place fully. The sensation drove them both to their knees. Corvina gasped, hands clutching at her chest, as the golden thread between them solidified into something real and permanent and utterly overwhelming. It wasn't gentle, wasn't the soft recognition she'd imagined. It was like every nerve ending in her body had suddenly connected to his, like she could feel his rage and his relief and his desperate need all tangled together with her own emotions until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. He was down the stairs in seconds, moving with impossible speed for someone his size. His boots barely touched the steps. When he reached her, his hands were gentle as they cupped her face. Despite the violent fury still radiating from him in waves, despite the gold still bleeding through his eyes, despite the way his whole body was trembling with barely contained violence, his touch was infinitely careful. You, he breathed. His thumbs traced the tear tracks on her cheeks with devastating tenderness. I felt you calling, felt your fear, felt you reaching for me through the bond. His expression darkened. Gold bled into the whites of his eyes as his wolf rose closer to the surface. They locked you down here during our ceremony. They tried to steal your place, tried to put someone else between us. The growl that rumbled through his chest made the air vibrate. Corvina couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but stare at him. This magnificent, terrifying alpha who'd torn through a reinforced door like it was nothing. who'd known instantly that Lyanna wasn't his mate, who'd come for her with the kind of single-minded determination that made her wolf purr with deep, bone-deep satisfaction. "I'm sorry." The words came out hoarse, broken. Her throat was raw from screaming. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I tried to." "You have nothing to apologize for." His hands were still cradling her face, his touch impossibly gentle for someone who'd just destroyed a door with his bare hands. "The ones who did this will answer for it." But first, he pulled back slightly, his golden eyes scanning her body with an intensity that felt almost physical. "Are you hurt? Did they harm you?" "Just locked me in." Corvina swallowed hard, trying to make her brain work through the overwhelming sensation of the completed mate bond. "My stepmother. She wanted Lyanna to take my place. She's been planning this for weeks. I didn't realize until today when she told me I wasn't allowed to attend." The growl that rumbled through his chest was felt more than heard, a vibration that made the air itself seem to tremble. She locked her own daughter in a cellar, to prevent her from meeting her true mate, to defy the moon goddess's sacred choice. "Stepdaughter," Corvina corrected quietly, the old pain of that distinction rising up despite everything. "My father was her second husband. He died 8 years ago. Since then, she's made it very clear that I'm an obligation she tolerates. Nothing more." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes, something that reminded Corvina that this man was the Alpha King for a reason, that his power wasn't just political, it was primal, absolute, the kind of power that made other alphas submit without question. Not anymore. He stood pulling her up with him. His hand was warm and solid around hers, steady in a way that made Corvina feel like she might actually be real, actually be visible, actually matter. "Stand up," he said, and it wasn't a command. It was an invitation. "Let me see you properly." Corvina's legs shook as she rose, suddenly aware of how she must look. Her dress was old and plain, the same one she'd worn to packed gatherings for the past 3 years because Helena refused to buy her anything new. Her hair had come loose from its braid, falling in tangled waves around her face. She had dust on her clothes and tear stains on her cheeks and blood on her hands from pounding on the door. But when he looked at her, it was like she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "Corvina," she whispered, because he needed to know her name, needed to know who she was beyond just mate. "My name is Corvina Ashford." "Rowan." His voice was rough with emotion. "Rowan Silvercrest. And you, Corvina Ashford, are the most stunning woman I have ever laid eyes on." Heat flooded her cheeks. "I look terrible. I'm covered in dust, and you look like mine." The possessiveness in his tone made her wolf sit up and take notice, made something deep in Corvina's chest settle, click into place, like finding the answer to a question she'd been asking her whole life without knowing it. "You look," Rowan continued, his voice softer now, "like the other half of my soul that I've been searching for my entire life." He held out his hand, and Corvina saw that it was trembling slightly. This powerful alpha who'd just torn through a door, whose authority made lesser wolves submit with a word, was shaking as he offered his hand to her. "Come," he said, "we have a ceremony to finish, and several people upstairs who need to learn what happens when they try to come between an alpha and his mate." Corvina took his hand, and the moment their palms touched, the mate bond sang. It was like completing a circuit, energy flowing between them that made her gasp, made her knees weak, made everything in the world suddenly finally make perfect sense. Rowan's eyes fluttered closed briefly. His grip tightened. "I felt you hours ago," he said quietly. "When I entered the territory, I knew my mate was close, knew the moon goddess had finally blessed me after decades of waiting. When I arrived and you weren't at the ceremony, I thought perhaps you were running late. Perhaps you were nervous." His jaw clenched. "Then they presented that girl, and I knew something was wrong. The bond was pulling me toward this house, but not toward her. When I asked where you were, your stepmother tried to insist there was no one else. That's when I knew they'd hidden you." He started up the stairs, keeping her hand firmly in his grip protective and possessive in equal measure. "And when you called to me through the end," he stopped on the stairs, turned to look at her with eyes that burned. "I have never felt rage like that. Pure, incandescent fury that anyone would dare keep my mate from me. That anyone would lock you away like you were nothing, like you didn't matter." His free hand came up to cup her cheek again. "You matter, Corvina. You matter more than anything." They emerged into the kitchen. The destruction was immediately apparent. The door Rowan had torn through lay in splinters across the floor. A section of the wall had cracks radiating from where he had apparently punched through it to reach the cellar entrance faster. The doorframe itself was bent at an angle that shouldn't be possible without supernatural strength. I may have overdone it, Rowan admitted, following her gaze. I wasn't thinking clearly. All I knew was that you were down there, afraid and alone, and every instinct I had was screaming at me to get to you. I'm glad you did. Corvina squeezed his hand, marveling at how perfectly hers fit in his. I was starting to think I'd be down there all night, that by the time anyone found me, the ceremony would be over and your sister would have stolen your life. Rowan's expression went hard again. That will never happen. You are my mate, chosen by the moon goddess herself. No one, and I mean no one, can take that from you. They walked through the house toward the front parlor where the ceremony had been taking place. Corvina could hear voices, anxious and confused, talking over each other in rising panic. As they approached, the conversation cut off abruptly. Rowan pushed open the door, and every eye in the room turned to them. The scene was chaos. The ceremonial altar had been knocked askew. Several potted plants lay shattered on the floor, and standing in the center of it all were Helena and Liana, both looking pale and terrified. Behind them, a group of wolves in formal attire stood at attention. The Alpha King's guard, Corvina realized. Their expressions were carefully neutral, but their eyes tracked Rowan's every movement with the intensity of trained warriors. Your Majesty, Helena's voice trembled in a way Corvina had never heard before. The confident, calculating woman who'd controlled Corvina's life for 8 years suddenly looked small, uncertain. I can explain. Explain what? Rowan's voice was dangerously quiet, the kind of calm that preceded violence. Explain how you locked my mate in a cellar during our mating ceremony. Explain how you tried to pass off your daughter as the moon goddess's choice. Explain how you were perfectly willing to defy sacred law for your own gain. I didn't know. Helena's facade was cracking, desperation bleeding through her practiced composure. How was I supposed to know Corvina was your mate? She's nobody. Nothing. She has no rank, no prospects, no... She caught herself, but too late. No value, Rowan finished coldly. Is that what you were going to say? Helena's silence was answer enough. Let me make something very clear. Rowan pulled Corvina forward, positioned her slightly in front of him, his hand still firmly holding hers. This is my mate. This is your future Luna Queen. And you tried to lock her away like trash, like she was disposable, like she didn't matter. The room fell into stunned silence. Corvina felt the weight of every stare, saw the shock on Liana's face, the fury and fear warring in Helena's expression. But more than that, she felt Rowan behind her, solid and unmovable, like a mountain at her back, like safety she'd never known she could have. Under pack law, Rowan continued, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Interfering with a mate bond is grounds for banishment. Attempting to defraud an alpha, especially the Alpha King, carries a penalty of permanent exile from all pack territories. Helena's face went from red to white. You can't. This is my home. My pack. You have no right. I have every right. Rowan's eyes flashed gold. I am the Alpha King. My word is law, and I will not allow those who tried to harm my mate to remain unpunished. He looked past Helena to one of his guards, a tall man with graying temples and the bearing of a career soldier. Captain Thorne, escort Helena Ashford to the territory border. She has until sunrise to gather her belongings. After that, she is officially exiled from all packlands under my protection. No. Liana's voice broke through the stunned silence, small and afraid, and nothing like the confident girl Corvina had grown up with. You can't do this. We didn't mean... You locked my mate in a cellar. Rowan's voice dropped to something barely above a whisper, but it cut through the room like a blade. You tried to steal her fate, her destiny, her sacred bond, and you tell me you didn't mean it. He stepped forward, pulling Corvina with him. The crowd parted like water. You knew exactly what you were doing. The only thing you didn't anticipate was that I would be able to sense her despite your deception. Liana was crying now, real tears, not the practiced kind Corvina had seen her use to get out of trouble or gain sympathy. These were tears of genuine fear and regret. I didn't want this, Liana said. Mother forced me. I tried to tell her it was wrong, but she said, you could have refused, Rowan said, but his voice was less harsh now, assessing. You could have spoken up, could have told the truth when I asked where my mate was. I did. Liana's voice was barely a whisper. I told you, as soon as you demanded the truth, I told you where Corvina was. Rowan studied her for a long moment, then looked to Corvina. What do you want? He asked quietly. She's your sister, your family. The decision should be yours. Corvina looked at Liana, saw the tear-streaked face, the trembling hands, the genuine fear in eyes that had always been so confident before. She saw the sister who'd ignored her, who'd accepted the best of everything while Corvina got nothing, who'd been complicit in 8 years of invisible cruelty. But she also saw the girl who'd been 10 years old when this all started, who'd been raised by Helena, shaped by Helena, taught that love was conditional and worth was measured in beauty and status, and the ability to secure a good match. She's been a victim too, Corvina said quietly. Maybe not the same way I have been, but Helena has been controlling her, manipulating her, using her as a pawn in whatever game she's been playing. She looked at Rowan. I don't want her exiled, not if she's willing to choose differently, to be better than what Helena taught her to be. Rowan's expression softened as he looked at her, something like pride flickering in his eyes. You have a kind heart, he murmured. Then louder to Liana. You heard your sister. You have a choice. Follow your mother into exile or stay and build your own life. Free from her manipulation, free from her expectations. But make no mistake, if you stay, you will be watched. If you harm Corvina again, if you betray this mercy she's showing you, there will be no second chances. Liana nodded frantically. I understand. I'll be better, I promise. Don't promise me, Rowan said. Promise her. She's the one you wronged. She's the one offering you grace you don't deserve. Liana turned to Corvina, fresh tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Corvina. I should have stopped her. Should have said something years ago. I was weak and selfish and... Stop. Corvina's voice was soft but firm. I don't need your apology right now. I need time. I need space. And you need to figure out who you are without Helena telling you who to be. Liana nodded, unable to speak around the tears. Helena was being escorted from the room now, Captain Thorne's hand firm on her arm. She turned back once, her eyes meeting Corvina's. And for just a moment, Corvina saw something she'd never seen before in her stepmother's expression. Regret. You don't understand, Helena said, her voice hollow. My first mate died before we bonded. Your father never loved me the way he loved your mother. I tried so hard to make him see me, to make anyone see me. And when he died, I thought at least I could give Liana the life I never had, the match I never made, the value I never possessed. She laughed, bitter and broken. I was invisible too once. I just chose to make you invisible instead of becoming visible myself. I thought if I could control someone, I wouldn't feel so powerless anymore. Corvina's chest tightened because she understood. God help her, she understood that desperation, that need to matter, to be seen, to have worth. But understanding didn't make it right, didn't erase 8 years of cruelty. I'm sorry you were invisible, Corvina said quietly. I'm sorry you were hurt, but you made me pay for pain I didn't cause. And I can't forgive that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Helena nodded slowly. I know, I wanted you to know that I see you now, finally, when it's too late. I see you, and you're extraordinary. You always were. Then she was gone, Captain Thorne guiding her firmly toward the door. The parlor fell into heavy silence, broken finally by Rowan's quiet voice. Is there anyone else who wishes to challenge the mate bond? Anyone else who thinks they have authority to question the moon goddess's choice? No one spoke. Then we have a ceremony to complete. Rowan turned to the elder who'd been officiating, an older wolf with white hair and kind eyes who'd watched the entire confrontation in silence. Elder Marcus, if you would be so kind as to continue. The ceremony that followed was simple, quiet, nothing like the grand celebration Helena had planned. But it was perfect. Elder Marcus spoke the traditional words, asked the traditional questions. And when it came time for the vows, Rowan took both of Corvina's hands in his. I, Rowan Silvercrest, accept Corvina Ashford as my true mate, chosen by the moon goddess to stand at my side. I vow to protect her, honor her, and cherish her for all the days the goddess grants us. I vow to see her, always, to value her, always, to make certain she never feels invisible again. Corvina's eyes burned with tears, good tears, healing tears. I, Corvina Ashford, she said, her voice stronger than she'd expected, accept Rowan Silvercrest as my true mate. I vow to stand beside you, to trust you, to build a life with you, to believe that I deserve the happiness the moon goddess has given us. The mate bond which had been humming between them since Rowan found her in the cellar suddenly blazed brighter. settled into place, no longer pulling or aching, but simply present. A part of her now as natural as breathing. By the power granted to me by the moon goddess and pack law, Elder Marcus said, his voice warm, I declare this bond recognized and sealed. What the goddess has joined, let no one tear asunder. Rowan pulled Corvina close and kissed her, gentle at first, almost tentative, as if he was afraid of overwhelming her. But when Corvina rose up on her toes and kissed him back with equal fervor, his control slipped. His hands tangled in her hair, his body pressed against hers, and the kiss deepened into something that made her wolf howl with satisfaction, made every witness politely avert their eyes, made Corvina feel for the first time in 8 years like she was exactly where she belonged. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Rowan rested his forehead against hers. Mine, he breathed. Finally, after all these years of waiting, you're mine. Yours, Corvina agreed, her voice shaky with emotion and desire, and something that felt dangerously close to hope. And you're mine too. That's how this works, right? He laughed, the sound rich and warm. That's exactly how this works, equal partners, which means you get a say in everything from here on out. He pulled back slightly to look at her. Starting with, would you like to stay here tonight and pack your things, or would you prefer to come to the palace immediately? Corvina looked around the parlor, seeing it with new eyes. This house had been her home once, before her father died, before Helena's true nature emerged, before 8 years of being invisible and forgotten, before tonight when she'd been locked in the cellar to have her fate stolen. I don't want to spend another night here, she said firmly. Anything important I can send for later. Right now, I just want to be somewhere that feels safe. Then the palace it is. Rowan's smile was gentle, understanding. And Corvina, you're safe now, I promise you that. No one will ever make you feel invisible again. As they prepared to leave, as the guards formed up around them, as the witnesses offered quiet congratulations, Corvina felt something in her chest that had been tight for 8 years finally loosen. Hope. Real hope. Not the dangerous kind that led to disappointment, but the kind that came from being seen, from being chosen, from having someone tear through doors to reach you, from finally mattering. The carriage was waiting outside, grand and imposing with the royal crest emblazoned on its sides. Rowan helped her in, his hand steady at her elbow, settled beside her with easy grace. And as the carriage jolted into motion, carrying them away from the house where she'd been imprisoned, toward a future she'd never imagined, Corvina leaned against his shoulder, felt the steady warmth of him, the solid reality of the mate bond connecting them. And for the first time in 8 years, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, things were going to be different now, that she was going to be different now, that she was finally on her way to becoming someone who mattered. The palace was too bright. That was Corvina's first thought when the carriage passed through the iron gates at dawn. Too bright, too grand, too much everything all at once after 8 years of learning to make herself small. The Silvercrest Palace sprawled across the hillside like a jewel catching the first light of morning. White stone towers reached toward the sky. Gardens bloomed in riots of color even in early autumn. And everywhere, there were wolves moving with purpose and confidence. Guards at their posts, servants tending the grounds, courtiers already gathering for the day's business. All of them stopped to stare as the royal carriage pulled up to the main entrance. All of them looking at her. Corvina's hand tightened on Rowan's. He squeezed back, steady, grounding. Breathe, he murmured. They're not judging you. They're curious. There's a difference. But Corvina had spent 8 years being invisible, had perfected the art of moving through spaces without being noticed, had learned to make herself so small that people forgot she was there. And now hundreds of eyes were fixed on her like she was something worth looking at, like she mattered. It should have felt good, validating. Instead, it felt like standing naked in a spotlight, every flaw exposed, every inadequacy visible. A woman was waiting at the palace entrance, tall and severe, with iron gray hair pulled back in a ruthless bun and eyes that assessed Corvina in a single sweeping glance. She wore formal court dress in deep burgundy, and her posture radiated authority. Dowager Queen Isolde, Rowan said quietly. My mother. Corvina's stomach dropped. She'd known she would have to meet Rowan's mother eventually, but she'd imagined having time to prepare, time to make herself presentable, time to figure out what to say to the woman who'd raised the Alpha King. Instead, she was meeting her now, covered in cellar dust, her dress torn at the hem, her hands still stained with blood from pounding on the door. her hair a tangled mess around her shoulders. Isolda's expression didn't change as they approached, didn't soften with welcome or harden with judgment. It simply remained neutral, assessing, waiting. Mother, Rowan said, his hand still firmly holding Corvina's. This is Corvina Ashford, my mate, your future Luna Queen. So I've been informed. Isolda's voice was cool, cultured, the kind of voice that had commanded respect for decades. The ceremony was completed. It was. Under unusual circumstances, I'm told. My mate was locked in a cellar by her stepmother during our ceremony, Rowan said flatly. I retrieved her. The boy responsible has been exiled. The circumstances are now resolved. Isolde's eyes flicked to Corvina, lingered on the dust, the torn dress, the bloody hands. I see. That was all, just I see. Two words that could mean anything or nothing. Two words that made Corvina feel smaller than she'd felt in years. Lady Ashford, Isolde continued, and Corvina realized with a start that she was being addressed directly. Welcome to Silvercrest Palace. I'm certain you're exhausted. Rowan, have the servants prepare the West Wing guest suite. Your mate will need time to rest and recover before any formal introductions. It was dismissal. Polite and proper, but dismissal nonetheless. Rowan's jaw tightened. Mother. She's been through an ordeal, Isolde interrupted smoothly. You don't intend to parade her through the palace in this state. Let her rest. We'll speak later. Then she turned and walked back into the palace. Back straight, head high, every inch the queen she'd been before Rowan ascended to the throne. I'm sorry, Rowan said quietly once she was out of earshot. She's not usually quite so cold, Corvina supplied. It's fine, I understand. I'm not what she expected. You're exactly what I need, Rowan corrected. What she expected is irrelevant. But as servants appeared to guide Corvina to the guest suite, as Rowan was pulled away by advisors demanding his attention on urgent territorial matters, Corvina couldn't help but think that what the Dowager Queen expected might matter more than Rowan believed. The West Wing guest suite was larger than the entire attic Corvina had lived in for the past 8 years. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens. A massive four-poster bed dominated one wall draped in silk the color of midnight. There was a sitting area with plush furniture, a writing desk carved from dark wood, and doors leading to a private bathing room that made Corvina's breath catch. Is everything to your satisfaction, my lady? The servant who'd escorted her was young, maybe 19, with kind eyes and a nervous smile. I'm Nessa. I've been assigned as your personal attendant. If you need anything at all. This is too much, Corvina whispered. I don't need all this. A simple room would be. You're the Alpha King's mate, Nessa said gently. This isn't too much. This is what you deserve. Corvina wanted to argue, wanted to say that she didn't deserve silk and soft furniture and rooms large enough to echo, that she was just Corvina Ashford from a minor pack. Nobody special, nobody important. But Nessa was already drawing a bath, already laying out fresh clothes, already treating Corvina like she was someone who mattered. And Corvina was too tired to fight it. The bath was hot enough to sting. Corvina sank into the water and watched the cellar dust cloud away from her skin, watched the blood rinse from her hands, watched 8 years of invisible grime seem to dissolve in water that smelled like lavender and something she couldn't name. When she finally climbed out, Nessa had laid out a dress, simple compared to the court gowns Corvina had glimpsed on other women, but finer than anything she'd worn in years. Soft blue fabric that moved like water, fitted but not restrictive, beautiful but not ostentatious. Perfect, Nessa declared when Corvina was dressed. You look like a Luna. Corvina looked at herself in the mirror, saw a stranger looking back. Clean, presentable, wearing clothes that actually fit properly. Hair brushed until it shone. She didn't look like a Luna. She looked like a girl playing dress-up in someone else's life. The first week passed in a blur of overwhelming everything. Rowan had meetings, constant, endless meetings about territorial disputes and pack politics and trade agreements. Things that required his attention as Alpha King. Things that meant Corvina spent hours alone in the guest suite trying to figure out what she was supposed to be doing. When Rowan was with her, everything felt right. The mate bond hummed between them, comfortable, natural, like they'd known each other for years instead of days. They ate meals together when his schedule allowed, walked in the gardens in the evenings, talked about everything and nothing. But when he was gone, Corvina felt lost. Nessa tried to help, brought books on pack protocol and Luna duties, explained the hierarchy of the court, taught Corvina which fork to use at formal dinners and how to address various ranks of nobility. But there was so much. Too much. Corvina's head spun with information she couldn't seem to retain. Every rule had exceptions. Every protocol had nuances. Every interaction required a level of social grace she'd never learned because Helena had made sure she attended no functions, learned no courtly skills, developed no confidence. On the fifth day, an older woman appeared at her door. 70 at least, with silver hair and warm eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. She wore simple robes in sage green, and she moved with the careful deliberation of someone who'd learned to conserve energy as age caught up with strength. "Lady Corvina," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I'm Elder Miriam. I serve as spiritual advisor to the royal family. May I come in?" Corvina nodded, too surprised to speak. Miriam settled into one of the sitting room chairs with a sigh of relief. "These old bones don't appreciate stairs the way they used to. Tell me, child, how are you finding palace life?" Corvina hesitated, tried to find the right words, the polite words. "It's very grand." "That's not what I asked." Miriam's eyes were kind, but shrewd. "I asked how you're finding it, not what you think I want to hear." Corvina's throat tightened. "I'm drowning," she admitted. "Everyone here knows what to do, how to act, what to say. And I'm just trying not to break anything or embarrass Rowan or prove everyone right when they look at me and think I don't belong here." "And do you belong here?" "I don't know." The words came out small, honest. "Rowan says I do. The mate bond says I do. But everyone else doesn't matter," Miriam interrupted gently. "The only opinions that matter are yours and your mate's. But I understand feeling out of place. I felt the same way 60 years ago when I first arrived at this palace as a young healer from a minor pack. I didn't know which fork to use either." Corvina looked up surprised. Miriam smiled. "Court protocol can be learned. Social graces can be practiced. But strength of character, that can't be taught. You survived 8 years of cruelty without becoming cruel yourself. You showed mercy to the sister who wronged you. You stood in that cellar and called to your mate through a bond you'd only just discovered. That's the kind of strength this court needs. The kind that matters." "But what if I'm not strong enough?" Corvina whispered. "What if I fail?" "Then you fail, and you get back up, and you try again." Miriam reached out, covered Corvina's hand with her own. Her skin was paper-thin, warm. "Being Luna Queen isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, about caring, about using whatever power you have to make things better for those who have none." "I don't know how to do that." "Then I'll teach you," Miriam said simply. "Not the fork business. Nessa can handle that, but the important things. How to read people, how to listen with your heart as well as your ears, how to be a leader worth following. If you'll let me." Corvina nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat, because someone was offering to teach her. Not because they had to, not because Rowan commanded it, but because they wanted to, because they believed she was worth the effort. "Good," Miriam said. "We'll start tomorrow. But tonight there's a small dinner, just family. Rowan the Dowager Queen, a few close advisors. You'll attend." "I'm not ready." "You'll never be ready," Miriam interrupted kindly. "Ready is a myth. You'll just be less unprepared, and that's good enough." The small family dinner was held in a private dining room that could have comfortably seated 30. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over a table set with more silverware than Corvina had ever seen in her life. Rowan was already there, speaking quietly with an older male advisor. He looked up when Corvina entered, and his face transformed. "You look beautiful," he said, crossing to her immediately, taking her hand, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that made heat flood her cheeks. "I feel ridiculous," she murmured. "There are 12 forks at each place setting. I don't know which." "Start from the outside and work in," Rowan whispered. "And if you get lost, watch me. We'll figure it out together." The Dowager Queen arrived last. Isolde swept into the room like she owned it, which Corvina supposed she had for decades before Rowan took the throne. She nodded coolly to Corvina as she took her seat at the head of the table. Rowan seated Corvina to his right, Isolde to his left. A clear statement about hierarchy and importance that Corvina tried not to think about too hard. Dinner started smoothly enough. Light conversation about territorial news, trade negotiations with neighboring packs, the weather. Safe topics that required little input from Corvina beyond polite nods and murmured agreement. Then Isolde turned her attention directly to Corvina. "Tell me, Lady Ashford, what experience do you have with pack leadership? Have you served in any administrative capacity, managed household affairs, Organized social functions. Corvina's mind went blank. I know, my stepmother didn't. Ah, yes, the stepmother. Isolde's tone was neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. The one who locked you in a cellar. Quite dramatic. Mother, Rowan's voice carried warning. I'm simply trying to understand what skills Lady Ashford brings to the role of Luna Queen. Isolde continued smoothly. Leadership experience, political acumen, social connections, educational background. Each question landed like a blow, because Corvina had none of those things. Helena had made certain of that, had kept her isolated, uneducated beyond basic literacy, disconnected from every social and political network that might have prepared her for this role. I have survived, Corvina said quietly. I know what it means to be invisible, to be voiceless, to be treated as if you don't matter. She looked directly at Isolde. Maybe that's not political experience, but it's taught me something about the wolves who need a Luna Queen, who understands what it means to have nothing, who will fight for those with no power. The table fell silent. Isolde studied Corvina for a long moment. Then unexpectedly she smiled, small and fleeting but real. Perhaps, she said quietly, perhaps there's more to you than I initially thought. It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. It was the first crack in Isolde's careful facade, the first hint that the Dowager Queen might be willing to see past Corvina's lack of credentials to something deeper. Corvina held on to that small victory like a lifeline as dinner continued. By the end of week 2, Corvina had developed a routine. Mornings with Miriam learning about pack politics and leadership philosophy. Afternoons with Nessa practicing protocol and social graces. Evenings with Rowan when his schedule allowed learning about him, his history, his responsibilities, his dreams for the territories. She was adjusting, slowly, painfully, but adjusting. Then the council meeting happened. Rowan had asked her to attend. You should start learning how territorial governance works, he'd said. You'll be part of these discussions soon enough. Better to observe first. So Corvina had sat in the corner of the council chamber, quiet, invisible, watching as Rowan and 12 senior advisors debated trade routes and border security and pact disputes. One of the advisors, a sharp-eyed man named Councillor Devon, had looked at her midway through. Your Majesty, is it customary now to have guests at council meetings? Lady Ashford is not a guest, Rowan said evenly. She is my mate and your future Luna Queen. She's observing. Of course, Devon's smile didn't reach his eyes. Though I wonder if perhaps she might be more comfortable elsewhere while we discuss sensitive territorial matters. No offense intended, but she is from a minor pack, untrained in discretion. One worries about information security. The implication was clear. Corvina couldn't be trusted. Wasn't qualified. Didn't belong. Lady Ashford has more integrity than most of this council, Rowan said coldly. She will remain. But the damage was done. Every advisor now looked at Corvina with varying degrees of skepticism, assessing, judging, finding her wanting. And Corvina felt herself shrinking again, becoming invisible. That old defense mechanism rising up because being invisible hurt less than being seen and found insufficient. That night she couldn't sleep, paced the guest suite while the mate bond hummed with awareness that Rowan was working late in his study. She felt his concern through the connection, felt him wanting to come to her, but held back by duty. Around midnight, her door opened. Not Rowan, Isolde. The Dowager Queen stood in the doorway wrapped in a dressing gown, her silver hair loose around her shoulders. She looked older like this, more human, less queen. May I come in? Corvina nodded, too surprised to speak. Isolde settled into one of the chairs, silent for a long moment. Then, I was 19 when I became Luna Queen, fresh from a minor pack in the Southern Territories. No political training, no social connections. I was terrified. Corvina sat slowly. You seem so confident, so certain. I learned. Isolde's voice was soft, remembering. But it was brutal. The court was vicious. They saw me as weak, unworthy. For 5 years I fought for every scrap of respect, made mistakes, failed publicly, cried privately, and I survived. She looked at Corvina, really looked at her. I've been cold to you, I know that, it wasn't fair. But I see you struggling the way I struggled, and I remember how much it hurt, how much I wanted someone to tell me I was doing well, that I belonged, and instead everyone told me what I was doing wrong. So why are you telling me this now? Because tonight at dinner when Devon questioned you, you didn't shrink. You didn't apologize for existing. You sat there and endured. Isolde's expression softened. That takes strength, the kind that can't be taught. I was wrong about you. You're not unworthy. You're untrained. There's a difference. Corvina's eyes burned. I don't know how to be what everyone needs me to be. Then don't be what they need. Be what you are. Isolde stood, moved to the door, paused. And perhaps if you'll allow it, I can teach you some of what I learned. So you don't have to fight for respect the way I did. So you can stand in that council chamber and know you belong there. Why would you help me? Isolde smiled, sad and understanding. Because no one helped me, and I wish they had. Week 3 brought new pressure. The mate bond was complete. The ceremony had been performed. But there was one final ritual, one tradition that needed to be fulfilled to fully cement Corvina's position as Luna Queen. The marking. In wolf culture, marking was intimate, permanent, a bite at the junction of neck and shoulder that left a scar visible to every wolf who saw it. Proof of the bond, proof of commitment, proof that the mate relationship was complete in every way. And according to pack law, it needed to happen within 1 moon cycle of the initial bonding ceremony. They had 10 days left. Rowan didn't push, didn't demand, didn't even mention it beyond making sure Corvina knew the deadline was approaching. We'll mark when you're ready, he said. Tradition can wait. But tradition couldn't wait. Not really, because the council was getting restless. Because unmarked bonds created questions about legitimacy. Because every day that passed without the marking ceremony was another day for rumors to spread that something was wrong, that the bond was false, that Corvina was having second thoughts. Miriam found Corvina in the gardens on day 22, 8 days before the deadline, sitting on a bench overlooking the roses and trying to breathe through the panic attack that had been building all morning. Talk to me, Miriam said, settling beside her. What's causing this fear of the marking? Corvina's hands were shaking. I know I'm supposed to want it, supposed to be ready, but every time I think about it, I feel trapped. Corvina nodded miserably. Helena controlled everything, where I went, what I wore, what I said, what I did. For 8 years, I had no autonomy, no choice, no voice, and now everyone's waiting for me to let Rowan mark me, to make it permanent. And I know he's not Helena. I know the mate bond is real. But the thought of something that permanent, that visible, that intimate, she couldn't finish, couldn't explain the way her chest tightened at the thought, the way panic clawed at her throat. You're afraid of losing yourself again, Miriam said quietly, of being subsumed into someone else's identity. Yes, the word came out as a whisper, a confession. I'm afraid if I let him mark me, I'll disappear again, just in a different way. Have you told Rowan this? How can I? He's been so patient, so understanding. And I'm his mate. I'm supposed to want this. What kind of Luna Queen is afraid of completing the bond? A human one, Miriam said gently. Corvina, the mate bond is sacred, but it doesn't erase trauma. It doesn't magically heal 8 years of abuse. You need time. You need trust. And those things can't be rushed, no matter what tradition demands. The council can wait, Miriam's voice was firm. And if they can't, Rowan will make them. Talk to him. Tell him what you're feeling. He'll understand. But before Corvina could respond, Nessa appeared at the garden entrance, her expression troubled. My lady, you have a visitor, your sister. She's asking to see you. Corvina's stomach dropped. Liana? Yes, my lady. She says it's urgent. Liana looked terrible. That was Corvina's first thought when she saw her sister in the receiving room. Liana's golden hair was dull and tangled. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She'd lost weight in the 3 weeks since the ceremony. Her hands trembled as she twisted them together. Thank you for seeing me, Liana said. Her voice was small, nothing like the confident girl Corvina had grown up with. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I need to tell you something. What happened? Corvina's heart was already racing, some instinct saying this was bad. This was wrong. It's mother, Liana's voice broke. Helena, she tried to... The words wouldn't come, but Corvina understood anyway, felt the blood drain from her face. She tried to end her life, Liana whispered. 3 days ago. She's in a medical facility now. She's alive, but... Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. She keeps asking for you, keeps saying she needs to tell you something. That she has something that belongs to you. Corvina sat heavily, mind reeling. Because however much she'd been hurt by Helena, however much anger she still carried, the thought of her stepmother being in that much pain, that much despair. You don't have to go, Rowan's voice came from the doorway. He must have been summoned when Liana arrived. You owe her nothing. I know. Corvina looked up at him. But maybe I need to go anyway. Not for her, for me, for closure, to understand. Rowan studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Then I'll go with you. No. Corvina surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. This is something I need to do alone. Please, I'll wait outside, he compromised, but I'm coming with you to the facility. I won't let you face this without support nearby. The medical facility was in neutral territory, 3 hours travel from the palace, a place where wolves from all packs could receive care without political complications. Helena was in a private room, pale and still against white sheets, bandages wrapped around her wrists, tubes and monitors connected to her body. She looked smaller than Corvina remembered, fragile, broken in ways that had nothing to do with physical injury. Her eyes opened when Corvina entered, focused slowly. You came. Liana said you asked for me. I did. Helena's voice was hoarse, thin. I needed to tell you I'm sorry. Properly. Not the empty words I said when they were exiling me, but really sorry. For everything I did, everything I took from you. I know, Corvina said quietly. You told me, when they were taking you away. No. Helena struggled to sit up, failed, lay back against the pillows. You don't know why I did what I did. You were hurt. Your first mate died. My father didn't love you the way you needed. You felt invisible. It's more than that. Helena's eyes filled with tears. When your father married me, I thought I'd finally have value, finally matter. But he was kind, not loving, dutiful, not devoted. And I knew every day that he still loved your mother, that I was second choice. Replacement, never quite good enough. She drew a shaky breath. When he died, I thought maybe Liana could have what I couldn't. The perfect match, the devoted mate, the life I'd always wanted. So I poured everything into her, made you small so she could be big, made you invisible so she could be seen. I know all this, Corvina said. It doesn't make it right. No, but there's more. Helena's hand fumbled toward the bedside table. Nessa, who'd accompanied Corvina, stepped forward to help, retrieved a worn leather bag. Your father, Helena whispered. He left something for you, letters. He wrote one every month from the time you were 10 until he died. 12 letters, to be given to you on your 21st birthday. Instructions about the mate bond, about being Luna, about how proud he was of you, how much he loved you. Corvina's breath stopped. What? I hid them. Helena's voice broke. I hid them in the attic. Couldn't bear the thought of you having that, having his love in writing when I never had it. I wanted to destroy them, burn them, but I couldn't. So I just kept them hidden, kept you from knowing how much your father believed in you. She pushed the leather bag toward Corvina. They're yours. They've always been yours. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I took that from you too. Corvina's hands shook as she took the bag, opened it. Inside were 12 sealed envelopes. Her name written on each one in her father's careful handwriting. The world tilted, because these were pieces of her father she'd thought were lost forever. His voice, his wisdom, his love, all here, real, waiting for her. Why are you giving these to me now? Corvina whispered. Because I have nothing left to lose. Helena's voice was barely audible. Because I destroyed my life and Leanna's life and your life, and I can't undo any of it. But I can give you back the one thing I stole that might actually matter. Your father's words, his belief in you, the truth that you were always worthy, always loved. I just couldn't stand to let you know it. Corvina clutched the bag to her chest, felt tears streaming down her face. Not for Helena, for herself. For the girl who'd spent 8 years thinking she was alone, thinking her father's love had died with him. When all along he'd left her proof that she mattered, that she was worthy, that he'd seen a future for her she couldn't imagine for herself. I can't forgive you, Corvina said. Not yet, maybe not ever. I know. Helena's eyes drifted closed. I just wanted you to have what was always yours, to know that someone believed in you, even when I made sure you couldn't believe in yourself. Corvina left the room, found Rowan waiting in the hallway, collapsed into his arms and cried. For everything she'd lost, for everything she'd found, for the father who'd loved her enough to prepare her for a future he'd never see. That night in her suite at the palace, Corvina read the letters, all 12 of them, one after another, her father's voice clear in every word, telling her about the mate bond, about strength and courage and destiny, about the woman he knew she would become. The last letter, written a week before he died, ended with these words: "My dearest Corvina, if you're reading this, I am gone. But I want you to know that I see you. I have always seen you. You are brave and kind and stronger than you know. When you meet your mate, and you will, I'm certain of it, don't be afraid. Don't let fear make you small. You were born to stand beside an alpha, born to lead, born to matter. Never let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise. I love you. I'm proud of you. And wherever I am, I'm watching over you. You're going to do extraordinary things. I just wish I could be there to see them. All my love always. Your father." Corvina folded the letter carefully, pressed it to her chest, and felt something inside her that had been broken for 8 years finally begin to heal. Because her father had seen her, had believed in her, had known she would be exactly where she was now, and he'd been proud. She found Rowan in his study, working late as always. He looked up when she entered, a concern immediate in his eyes. "Are you all right?" "No," Corvina said honestly, "but I will be. I need to tell you something." She told him about the marking ceremony, about her fear, about feeling trapped and scared and like she might lose herself again. She told him everything, all the panic and terror and confusion she'd been carrying for weeks. Rowan listened, didn't interrupt, didn't defend or explain or justify, just listened with his full attention until she'd said everything she needed to say. Then he stood, crossed to her, took both her hands in his. "The marking ceremony," he said quietly, "is meant to honor the bond, to celebrate commitment. It's not meant to be a cage. And if it feels like one to you, then we don't do it. Not until you're ready. Not until you trust that being mine doesn't mean losing yourself." "But the council can go to hell." Rowan's voice was firm. "You are my mate, my equal, my partner, not my possession. And I will not mark you until you're ready to be marked. Even if that takes months, years, however long you need." "You mean that?" "I swear it." He brought her hands to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. "You survived 8 years of being controlled. I won't be another person who takes your autonomy. You set the pace. You make the choice. And I will wait." Corvina felt the last of her resistance crumble. Not because Rowan was pushing, but because he wasn't. Because he was giving her exactly what she needed. Space, time, choice. "My father wrote me letters," she said softly, 12 of them, about destiny and courage and the mate bond, about becoming Luna. He believed I could do this, be this, even when I couldn't believe it myself. He was right. I read them tonight, all of them, and I realized something. Corvina looked up at Rowan. "I've been so afraid of losing myself in you that I forgot I'd already found myself. These past weeks I haven't been disappearing. I've been growing, learning, becoming stronger." She took a breath, steadying. "I'm ready. Not because tradition demands it, not because the council expects it, but because I choose it. I choose you. I choose us. And I'm not afraid anymore." Rowan's eyes blazed gold. "You're certain?" "I'm certain." And she was. Finally, completely. "I want to complete the bond. I want to be marked. I want everyone to know that I'm yours and you're mine, and this is real." "When now?" Corvina smiled, small but genuine. "Right now, no ceremony, no audience, just us, the way it should have been from the beginning." Rowan cupped her face in his hands, studied her for a long moment, then smiled, fierce and proud and full of love. "Then come with me." He led her to his private chambers. His real rooms, not the formal quarters used for state business. The space was simpler than Corvina expected. Personal, with windows overlooking the gardens and a bed that looked like it was built for comfort, not show. "Are you sure?" Rowan asked one more time. "Because once I mark you, that's it. Permanent, visible. Everyone will know you're mine." "Everyone will know we're each other's," Corvina corrected. "Because you mark me and I mark you. Equal partners, the way the mate bond is supposed to work." Rowan's smile was radiant. "Equal partners. I like that." The marking was intimate, private, nothing like the public ceremony tradition demanded. Rowan was gentle, patient, made sure she was comfortable every step of the way. And when his teeth finally sank into the junction of her neck and shoulder, when the bond flared bright and permanent and complete, Corvina felt no fear, no panic, no sense of losing herself. She felt whole, and when she marked him in return, felt his sharp intake of breath And the way the bond solidified from his side too, she understood. This wasn't about possession. It wasn't about control. It was about choosing each other, claiming each other, building something together that neither of them could build alone. They lay tangled together afterward, the marks fresh and tender and visible, the bond humming between them, complete in every way. My father knew, Corvina whispered. He knew I'd find you, knew I'd be here, knew I'd be strong enough to survive everything and still choose love. He was a wise man. He was. Corvina traced the mark on Rowan's shoulder. Her mark, proof that she mattered enough to leave a permanent claim on the Alpha King. I wish he could have met you. I wish that too. Rowan kissed her forehead. But he left you those letters. Left you the wisdom and courage to become exactly who you're meant to be. That's a gift. It is. Corvina closed her eyes, felt the mate bond steady and strong, felt Rowan's heartbeat in rhythm with her own, felt for the first time in 8 years like she was exactly where she belonged. Thank you. For what? For waiting, for giving me choice, for not making me small. You could never be small, Rowan said. You're brilliant and brave and strong. You survived what would have broken most wolves, and you came out the other side with your kindness intact. That's extraordinary. Corvina smiled against his chest. I'm starting to believe that. Good. Rowan's arms tightened around her, because it's true. And tomorrow will show the entire court just how extraordinary you are. But tonight you're mine and I'm yours, and that's enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. The morning of the public marking ceremony dawned clear and bright, too bright for Corvina's nerves. She stood at the window of her chambers, no longer the guest suite, but rooms adjacent to Rowan's that she'd moved into after their private marking 3 days ago. Her hand drifted unconsciously to the mark on her neck, still tender, still visible, proof that the bond was complete in every way that mattered. But the court needed its ceremony. The territories needed their spectacle. And Corvina needed to prove she could stand before hundreds of witnesses and claim her place as Luna Queen without crumbling under the weight of expectation. You're going to pace a hole in the carpet, Nessa said from the doorway. She carried a dress, not silk or velvet like the court gowns Corvina had seen on other noble women. Something different. Something that made Corvina's breath catch. What is that Dowager Queen Isolde had it made? Nessa laid the dress carefully across the bed. She said you needed something that honored where you came from as well as where you're going. The dress was midnight blue, simple lines that would move like water, but woven into the bodice was fabric from something else, something older. Corvina recognized it immediately. My father's beta cloak, she whispered. The Dowager Queen retrieved it from your old home, Nessa explained, had it incorporated into the design. She said a Luna Queen should carry her father's strength with her, especially today. Corvina touched the familiar fabric, worn soft from years of her father wearing it at pack gatherings. She could almost smell him, almost feel his presence, almost hear his voice from those letters telling her she was destined for this. Tell her thank you, Corvina said quietly. Tell her it's perfect. The ceremony was held in the palace's grand hall, a space that could hold 500 wolves comfortably and was currently filled beyond capacity. Representatives from every pack in the territories had come, alphas and their mates, counselors, elders, witnesses to watch the Alpha King's mate receive her public marking and her official recognition as Luna Queen. Corvina stood in the preparation room adjacent to the hall and tried to breathe through the panic climbing her throat. She could hear them out there, hundreds of voices, all waiting to see her, to judge her, to decide if she was worthy. They already know we're marked, Rowan said quietly. He'd appeared at her side resplendent in formal black and silver. The mark she'd given him was visible at his collar, proof that they belonged to each other. This ceremony is a formality. The bond is already complete. Then why does it feel like the most important test I've ever faced? Because it is. Isolde's voice came from behind them. The Dowager Queen wore deep burgundy, her silver hair arranged in an elaborate style that spoke of hours of preparation. But her expression was softer than Corvina had ever seen it. You're not just accepting a mark today. You're accepting a crown, a responsibility, a role that will define the rest of your life. No pressure, Corvina muttered. Isolde smiled, walked forward until she stood directly in front of Corvina. I told you I judged you unfairly when we first met. I saw an untrained girl from a minor pack and assumed you lacked the strength for this role. She reached out, adjusted the fabric from Corvina's father's cloak where it sat at her shoulder. I was wrong. Strength isn't about political training or social connections. It's about surviving what should have broken you and choosing kindness anyway. You have that strength. Your father knew it. Rowan sees it. And now I see it too. Thank you, Corvina whispered. Don't thank me yet. I'm about to send you out there to face the most judgmental audience in the territories. But Isolde's eyes were warm. Though I suspect you'll surprise them the way you surprised me. The doors to the grand hall opened. Music swelled. And Corvina walked forward on Rowan's arm into a sea of staring faces. The hall was magnificent. Chandeliers cast golden light over wolves dressed in their finest. Flowers decorated every surface. The ceremonial altar stood at the far end, draped in white and silver. Elder Marcus waited there, the same elder who'd officiated their first ceremony in Silverpine Pack. But it wasn't the grandeur that made Corvina's steps steady. It wasn't the music or the flowers or the careful choreography of the moment. It was the faces she recognized scattered through the crowd. Miriam standing near the front with tears already streaming down her weathered cheeks. Nessa tucked into a corner but beaming with pride. Liana thin and nervous but present. Witnessing. Supporting. And Rowan's hand steady and warm, holding hers like an anchor in a storm. They reached the altar. Elder Marcus smiled. We gather today, he intoned his voice carrying through the hall, to witness the public recognition of a bond the moon goddess has already blessed. To honor the marking between Rowan Silvercrest, Alpha King of the Territories, and Corvina Ashford, chosen mate, and Luna Queen. He gestured for them to face each other. Corvina looked up at Rowan and saw love and pride and absolute certainty in his eyes. The private marking has been completed. Elder Marcus continued. What we do here is not to create the bond, but to celebrate it. To declare before all witnesses that this union is recognized, honored, and protected under pack law. He turned to the audience. Is there any who would challenge this bond? Any who would question the moon goddess's choice? Silence, heavy and complete. No one moved, no one spoke. Then by the authority granted to me by the moon goddess and the laws of our people, I declare this marking recognized and celebrated. Rowan Silvercrest and Corvina Ashford are bonded mates, partners in ruling equals in all things. What the goddess has joined, let no wolf tear asunder. The hall erupted in cheers. Rowan pulled Corvina close and kissed her. Not the gentle, tentative kiss of their first ceremony, but something deeper, more confident. A kiss that spoke of 3 weeks of learning each other, of trust built and fear overcome, of love growing in the space between destiny and choice. When they broke apart, Corvina was smiling, really smiling. For the first time since walking into this overwhelming hall, she felt like maybe she belonged here after all. The feast that followed was overwhelming in the best way. Tables laden with food, music and dancing. Wolves from packs across the territories coming to offer congratulations and welcome. Corvina's feet hurt from standing. Her face ached from smiling. But for the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, truly valued, not invisible, not forgotten, but present and important and worthy of taking up space. You're doing beautifully, Isolde murmured as she passed, though you might want to eat something before you faint from exhaustion. Rowan appeared at Corvina's elbow with a plate of food and a knowing smile. Mother's right. Come sit. They found a quiet corner, away from the crowd but still part of the celebration. Corvina ate without tasting, too overwhelmed to process anything beyond the fact that she'd survived. She'd done it. She'd stood in front of hundreds of wolves and claimed her place without crumbling. I'm proud of you, Rowan said quietly. I didn't do anything, just stood there and let people stare at me. You did everything. His hand found hers under the table, squeezed. You were terrified and you faced it anyway. That's courage. I just didn't want to embarrass you. You could never embarrass me. Rowan's voice was fierce. You're brilliant and strong and kind, and anyone who can't see that isn't worth your worry. Corvina leaned against his shoulder, exhausted but happy. For the first time since the night in the cellar, she felt like maybe her life was actually changing for the better. Like maybe she could be the Luna Queen everyone needed her to be. 2 months after the marking ceremony, Corvina had settled into a routine. She met with Miriam 3 times a week to discuss pack politics and leadership philosophy. She worked with Isolde on court protocol and diplomatic relations. She attended council meetings with Rowan, learning how territorial governance actually worked. She was learning, growing, becoming more confident in her role with each passing day. Then the news arrived. Corvina was in the library when Captain Thorne found her. His expression was grave. My lady, there's been an attack on the Moonridge Pack, border village. Rogues came through at dawn. Casualties. Corvina's stomach dropped. 23 dead, 42 injured, and 30 orphaned pups, ages 3 to 15. Thorne's jaw tightened. The pack is decimated. They're requesting aid. Corvina's mind raced. 30 orphaned children just lost their families, their homes, everything. What happens to the children? Council will vote on placement. Standard protocol is to send them to work camps. They'll earn their keep doing labor until they're old enough to petition for pack membership somewhere. The words hit Corvina like a physical blow. Work camps, children as young as 3 sent to labor for their survival because they had no family, no pack, no value beyond what they could produce. Call an emergency council meeting, Corvina said. Her voice was steady, certain. Now, the council chamber was full within the hour. 12 advisors, Rowan at the head of the table, Isolde observing from the side, and Corvina standing because sitting felt wrong when children's lives hung in the balance. The Moonridge situation is tragic, Councillor Devon said. He was the one who'd questioned Corvina's presence at council meetings weeks ago. Still skeptical. Still looking for reasons to dismiss her. But we have protocols for handling orphaned wolves. The work camps in the Eastern Territory. Are you seriously suggesting we send children to labor camps? Corvina's voice cut through his words. It's not ideal, but it's practical. Devon spread his hands. We don't have the resources to care for 30 children. They need food shelter, education, supervision. The camps provide housing in exchange for age-appropriate labor. It's been our solution for generations. It's not a solution, it's exploitation. Corvina stepped forward. These children just watch their families die. They're traumatized and terrified, and you want to ship them off to work. They're not labor resources. They're victims who need protection. And where do you propose we put them? Another counselor, a woman named Vera, spoke up. Our packs are full. Our resources stretched. Noble sentiments don't house and feed 30 mouths. We put them here. Corvina's heart was pounding, but her voice remained steady. At the palace, we establish a sanctuary, a place where orphaned wolves can find safety and care until they're ready to join packs of their choosing. The council erupted, half the advisors talking over each other, objections flying from every direction. Too expensive. Sets dangerous precedent. We can't take in every orphan in the territories. We'll become a magnet for every abandoned pup. Enough. Rowan's voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. The council fell silent. Lady Corvina has the floor. Let her finish. Corvina took a breath, looked around the table at faces ranging from skeptical to hostile. I was functionally orphaned when I was 12 years old. My father died, and I spent 8 years being treated like I had no value, like I was a burden to be tolerated. I know what it means to be unwanted, to be invisible, to believe you don't matter. She paused, let the words settle. These 30 children didn't choose to lose their families. They didn't do anything wrong. They're victims of violence and circumstance, and we have the power to give them something better than a life of labor and exploitation. We have the power to show them they matter, that they have worth beyond what they can produce. The cost, Devon started. We'll find the Kada. Corvina's voice hardened. The palace has unused wings. We have resources. We can build something that actually helps these children instead of using them. And if we do this right, if we create a real sanctuary, we become the territory that values its most vulnerable citizens. That's not weakness. That's strength. She's right. Isolde's voice came from the observation area. The Dowager Queen stood moved to stand beside Corvina. When I was Luna Queen, we had no system for protecting orphaned wolves. I watched children disappear into labor camps and come out broken. If my daughter-in-law is proposing we do better, I support her. As do I, Miriam spoke up from her seat. The sanctuary is a worthy endeavor, one that honors our pack's stated values of protection and community. The expense is significant, Rowan said carefully, but manageable. If this is what my mate believes we should do, I will support it. She knows better than anyone what it means to need sanctuary and not have it. Devon looked frustrated. Your Majesty, with respect, we can't make major policy decisions based on Lady Corvina's personal trauma. You can when that trauma gives her insight none of you possess. Corvina's voice was sharp now, cutting. I sat in council meetings for weeks listening to you debate trade routes and border security and tax policy. Important matters. But this is about children who have no one. And I am Luna Queen, mated and marked. This is exactly the kind of decision I'm supposed to make. She looked at Rowan. saw pride and support in his eyes, drew strength from it. I'm not asking permission, Corvina continued. I'm informing you of what we're doing. The Silver Crest Sanctuary will be established. The 30 orphans from Moonridge will be brought here and given proper care. We'll provide housing, education, emotional support, and safety until they're ready to choose their own paths. This is my decree as Luna Queen. The chamber fell into stunned silence, because this was the first time Corvina had pulled rank. The first time she'd used her authority to overrule the council. The first time she'd acted not as Rowan's mate, but as Luna Queen in her own right. Devon looked to Rowan, waiting for the Alpha King to override his mate, to put Corvina in her place. Rowan leaned back in his chair, smiled. My mate has spoken. The sanctuary will be built. Captain Thorne dispatched wolves to Moonridge to escort the children here safely. Counselors draft a budget proposal for the sanctuary's operation. We'll reconvene tomorrow to discuss implementation details. He looked directly at Devon. And to be clear, this isn't up for debate. Lady Corvina's decree stands. Any objections can be filed formally, but they won't change the outcome. We're building the sanctuary. The council meeting ended in chaos. Half the advisors muttering about overreach and precedent, the other half looking thoughtfully at Corvina like they were seeing her clearly for the first time. But Corvina didn't care about their approval. She cared about 30 children who would have shelter and safety instead of exploitation and labor. She cared that she'd used her power for something that mattered. After the meeting, Rowan found her in the gardens. She was pacing, adrenaline still coursing through her veins, mind racing with everything that needed to happen to make the sanctuary real. That was extraordinary, Rowan said. Devon's going to fight me on this. Let him try. Rowan pulled her close. You just showed the entire council that you're not some figurehead mate. You're Luna Queen, with authority and conviction and the courage to use both. I've never been more proud. I just couldn't let them send children to work camps. I couldn't, Corvina's voice broke. I know what it's like to be unwanted. I won't let these kids suffer that if I can prevent it. And you won't. We'll build something beautiful, something that actually helps. Rowan pressed a kiss to her forehead. Your father would be proud too. This is exactly the kind of thing he meant when he wrote about you being destined to lead. The Silver Crest Sanctuary took 6 weeks to build, a converted wing of the palace that had stood empty for decades. Rooms were renovated, furniture brought in, a dedicated staff hired to provide care and education and emotional support. And on a cold morning in late autumn, 30 children arrived. Corvina stood at the sanctuary entrance and watched them file in. Some crying, some silent and blank-faced with shock, some clinging to the few possessions they'd managed to save from the attack. All of them looking lost, scared, uncertain what would happen to them next. Welcome to Silver Crest Sanctuary, Corvina said softly. You're safe here, you're wanted here, and you will never be treated as anything less than valued members of our pack. The youngest child, a little girl no more than 4 years old with enormous eyes and tangled brown hair, tugged on Corvina's dress. Are you the Luna Queen? I am. Are you going to send us away? The question landed like a knife to the chest, because that's what these children expected. To be temporary, burdensome, eventually discarded. Corvina knelt so she was eye level with the little girl. What's your name? Kessa. Well, Kessa, I'm going to tell you something very important. You're not going away. This is your home now, for as long as you need it. And when you're ready to choose your own path, we'll help you do that. But you're not a burden. You're not temporary. You matter. Do you understand? Kessa's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. Then, without warning, threw her arms around Corvina's neck and held on like she was drowning, and Corvina was the only solid thing in the world. Corvina held her back, felt her own eyes burning, because this was why the sanctuary mattered. Not for political points or public approval, but for this, for one little girl who needed to know she wasn't alone. Over the next weeks, Corvina spent hours at the sanctuary, learning the children's names, their stories, their fears and hopes and dreams. She helped them settle in, comforted them through nightmares, made sure they understood this wasn't temporary. This was real. Liana appeared one afternoon, thin and uncertain but present. I heard about the sanctuary, she said. I thought I wondered if you might need help. I'm good with children. I could assist with education, or just whatever you need. Corvina studied her sister, saw a genuine desire to help, to atone, to be useful for something beyond serving Helena's ambitions. You can start tomorrow, Corvina said. But Liana, this isn't about earning forgiveness. This is about showing up for these kids. Can you do that? Yes. Liana's voice was firm. I want to. I need to do something good. Something that matters. Please let me try. So Liana joined the sanctuary staff, and slowly, carefully, the sisters began rebuilding something that had been broken for years. Not the relationship they'd had as children. Something new. Something honest. Something built on choice rather than blood. 4 months after the sanctuary opened, Corvina received a letter from Helena. The handwriting was shaky, the paper thin, but the words were clear. Corvina, I've been in the medical facility for months now, recovering, reflecting, trying to understand how I became the person who locked her stepdaughter in a cellar. I have no excuses, no justifications, but I have a request. Let me help with the sanctuary. I failed as a mother. Let me try to do better for children who have none. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need to do something good before I die. Please, Helena. Corvina read the letter 3 times, showed it to Rowan, to Miriam, to Isolde, to Liana. Everyone had opinions. Most advised against it. Helena had done too much damage, hurt Corvina too deeply, didn't deserve a chance to be involved in something meaningful. But Corvina thought about that little girl Kessa asking if she was going to be sent away. Thought about all the children in the sanctuary who'd been hurt and abandoned and were learning to trust again. Thought about Helena, who'd been hurt and abandoned too. Who'd let that pain turn her cruel instead of kind? Who was trying, however inadequately, to do better? She can volunteer, Corvina decided, in the kitchens, under supervision, no contact with the children until she's proven she's stable. And if she hurts anyone, if she brings her bitterness anywhere near these kids, she's gone immediately. Helena arrived 2 weeks later, smaller than Corvina remembered, grayer, moving like someone who'd been broken and was still learning to function again. She didn't try to hug Corvina, didn't offer empty apologies, just nodded. Thank you for this chance. It's not for you, Corvina said quietly. It's for the person I want to be. The Luna Queen who believes in second chances even when they're hard. But Helena, I need you to understand something. I'm not your stepdaughter anymore. I'm not the girl you could control and manipulate. I'm Luna Queen. And if you do anything to harm these children or undermine what we're building here, you will face consequences. I understand. Do you, Corvina, step closer? Because these kids, they've been through hell. They've lost everything, and they're learning to trust again. If you break that trust, if you bring any of your old poison here, I will exile you myself. Rowan won't have to do it. I will. Helena met her eyes, held her gaze. I deserve that, and more. I want to help. I want to do one good thing before I die. Let me try. So Helena worked in the sanctuary kitchens, preparing meals, cleaning, staying far from the children but close enough to hear their laughter, to see what real care and kindness looked like. And slowly, painfully, something in her began to heal too. One evening, Corvina found Helena standing at the kitchen window watching Liana teach a group of children in the courtyard, tears streaming down her face. I destroyed her, Helena whispered. I destroyed both of you. Raised Liana to be shallow and manipulative. Made you believe you were worthless. And look at you now. Look at what you've built, what you're giving these children. We've built, Corvina corrected. Liana's a good teacher. She's found purpose here. Because you gave her the chance I never did. Helena turned to face Corvina. You became everything I couldn't be. Kind despite suffering. Strong because of it, not in spite of it. How? I had my father's letters, his belief in me, and I had Rowan and Miriam and Isolde, and eventually I had myself. Corvina's voice was steady. I chose to be different than what you taught me. Chose kindness over cruelty. Chose to build instead of destroy. Thank you, Helena's voice broke. Thank you for letting me witness it, for letting me be part of something good even in this small way. I don't expect forgiveness. Don't deserve it. But thank you for not completely giving up on me. Corvina didn't forgive, not fully. The wounds were too deep, the scars too permanent. But she nodded, acknowledged the gratitude, and let it be enough. Because forgiveness wasn't always possible, but coexistence was. And sometimes that had to be enough. 6 months after the night in the cellar, Corvina stood in the palace's grand hall for a different ceremony, her coronation as Luna Queen. The marking ceremony had been about the bond. This was about the crown, the responsibility, the official recognition that she wasn't just Rowan's mate, but a leader in her own right. The hall was packed again. But this time Corvina felt no fear. She'd spent 6 months learning to lead, to use her voice, to stand firm in her convictions. She'd built a sanctuary, reformed policies, became the Luna Queen the territories needed. She was ready for this. Elder Marcus performed the ceremony. Simple, powerful, sacred. Corvina Ashford Silvercrest, he intoned. Do you accept the responsibility of Luna Queen? Do you vow to lead with wisdom and compassion, to protect the vulnerable, to use your power in service of those who have none? I do. Corvina's voice rang clear through the hall. Then by the authority granted to me by the moon goddess and the laws of our people, I crown you Luna, queen of the territories. May you lead with courage. May you govern with justice. May you never forget what it means to be invisible so you can ensure no one else suffers that fate. The crown was silver, simple, beautiful. Rowan placed it on her head himself, looked at her with such pride and love that Corvina's heart swelled. My Luna Queen, he murmured. My mate, my partner, my equal. My Alpha King, she replied. My love, my anchor, my home. The hall erupted in cheers. Corvina's coronation speech was short, powerful, from the heart. I was locked in darkness once, she said. Invisible, told I was worthless, told I had nothing to offer. But I'm here, standing before you, wearing this crown, not because I'm perfect, not because I have all the answers, but because I survived, and I chose to turn that survival into something meaningful. She looked out over the crowd, saw Miriam crying, saw Isolde smiling, saw the sanctuary children in the back wearing their best clothes, watching her with awe. Every person in the territories has value, Corvina continued. Every voice deserves to be heard. Every child deserves safety. Every victim deserves justice. That is my vow to you as your Luna Queen. I will see you. I will hear you. I will fight for you, especially those of you who feel invisible, who feel forgotten. You matter, and I will make sure you know it. The applause was deafening. That night, as the celebration continued, Corvina slipped away to the sanctuary, found Kessa, the little girl who'd asked if she would be sent away. Did you see the crown? Corvina asked. Kessa nodded, eyes huge. You look like a real queen. I am a real queen, and you know what that means. What? It means I have the power to make sure you're always safe, always cared for, always valued. That's what I'm going to use this crown for. To protect kids like you. To make sure no one ever feels invisible again. Kessa threw her arms around Corvina. I love you, Luna Queen. Corvina held her close, felt tears sting her eyes. I love you too, sweetheart. 1 year after the night in the cellar, Corvina stood in her chambers and looked at herself in the mirror. Pregnant, 4 months along. Her hand rested on the small swell of her stomach where new life was growing. She looked different than the girl who'd been locked away. Stronger, more confident, comfortable in her own skin. The crown sat on a table nearby, a reminder of how far she'd come. Rowan appeared in the doorway, smiled when he saw her. There you are. Liana's looking for you. Something about the sanctuary expansion plans. I'll find her in a moment. Corvina turned to face him. I was just thinking about everything that's changed. Everything has changed. Rowan crossed to her, wrapped his arms around her from behind, rested his hands over hers on her stomach. You've changed the entire kingdom in 1 year. We've changed it, together. But it was your vision, your courage, your refusal to let things stay broken. Rowan pressed a kiss to her neck, right over the mark. The sanctuary has 48 children now. 12 more packs have sent their orphans here. You've reformed labor laws, created educational programs, given voice to wolves who had none. You've done all that. I just made sure no one else has to feel invisible, Corvina said quietly. That's everything, Rowan replied. Later, Corvina took one of the new sanctuary children, a girl named Iris, who reminded her so much of herself at that age, down to the old cellar. The space had been transformed. No longer dark and oppressive, but bright and welcoming. Books lined the walls. Comfortable reading chairs filled the space. Windows had been cut into the walls to let in light. This was once my prison, Corvina told Iris, the place where I was locked away, where I thought my life was over, where I called to my mate through a bond I barely understood and prayed someone would hear me. Iris looked around with wide eyes. It doesn't look like a prison now. No, it's a library, a place of learning and hope and freedom. I had it converted because I never wanted to see it as a place of pain again. I wanted to transform it into something that helps instead of hurts. Did it work? Corvina smiled. Yes, I think it did. She walked to the door, The same door Rowan had destroyed to reach her. It had been replaced, repaired. But Corvina had insisted on one modification. The lock was there, but the key hung on a hook beside the door, always accessible, always visible. See this? Corvina touched the key. This door is never locked, never will be. Because everyone deserves a way out. Everyone deserves freedom. And I will never let anyone feel trapped the way I was. Rowan appeared at the top of the stairs, came down to join them. Ready for lunch? In a moment, Corvina looked at Iris. Why don't you pick out a book, any book you want? We'll come back later and read it together. Iris nodded, wandered off to explore the shelves. Rowan pulled Corvina close. You transformed your pain into something beautiful. We build better worlds, Corvina said simply, for ourselves and for those who come after us. She looked around the library, at the space that had once held her captive, that now held possibility. Rowan's hand found hers, squeezed. Together, he agreed. Together, Corvina echoed. Always together.